Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review a very interesting Doctor Who story. Shada, which is the sixth and final story, the intended final story of season 17. However, this story was not transmitted, it was not broadcast, because it wasn't finished. Basically, what happened with Shada was that when they were filming, there was a strike at the BBC, which unfortunately affected the production of this story, so they were unable to finish filming the story. However, there are some lovely people who decided to basically animate whatever they didn't film of the story, and thus we have Shada, a completed version which has the filmed footage from 1979, but also the animation, and the original cast have come back to do some more work and to do some voice work for the story, to kind of give us a more or less complete version of the story. And I know technically you could argue that The Horns of Nimon is the last story of the 70s, but I think Shada is, to be honest. I mean, I think, and was always intended to be. Shada, a prison built by the Time Lords for defeated would-be conquerors of the universe. Skagra, one such inmate, needs the help of one of the prison's inmates. He finds nobody knows where Shada is anymore, except one aged Time Lord who has retired to Earth, where he is a professor at St. Sed's College. Luckily for the universe, Skagra's attempt to force the information out of Professor Chronotis coincides with a visit by the professor's old friend, the Doctor. So, there we go. That's the basic premise of Shada. And taking into consideration the nature of this story, the fact that most of it is animated and some of it is filmed live action, I think this is a really good story. And you know what? It is better than all three of the previous stories. Thank God. Because season 17 has been plagued with bad story after bad story after bad story. Well, that being said, I liked the first two stories. I actually didn't mind Destiny of the Daleks. That one was good, and City of Death was great. So it's really nice that the season can end on a high note, more or less. It would have been lovely if this story could have been filmed all in live action, but it doesn't matter to me. It's not really much of a big deal as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the fact that we have a completed version of Shada is enough for me. I think the story is really, really good in this one, because it actually it's interesting in its own way, but it actually adds to sort of Time Lord lore by going into Shada and them trying to find the book and everything, and there's a lot of there's a nice kind of add to the mythology of the Time Lords and everything, so that's quite nice. And I think the Skagra is a great villain. I think he's a really good villain. Christopher Naim, who plays the role, he's very good. I mean, his costume might be a little over the top with the cape, but I don't mind that too much. I think he gives a pretty good performance, and I like him and the Doctor's mind battle at the end, where they're trying to take control over the ship's computer, and the Doctor, of course, gets the upper hand. But yeah, no, Skagra, great villain. The supporting cast, I think, are really good in this story. Chris Parsons, played by Daniel Hill, and Claire Keatley, played by Victoria Burgony. Both of them are very good, and I like them. Their involvement in the story is good. Claire doesn't seem to come in until a bit later on, but it's when Claire gets involved, she does get involved, and she has a lot of good moments with the Doctor and Romana. David Brierley as K9. I've kind of said everything I can say about David Brierley. I don't like him as K9. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life, but I just don't think I just don't think the voice works. It's just a John Leeson impression. So yeah. Anyway. I think also I will give a mention to Shirley Dixon, who voices the ship, who is the voice of the ship. I think she's really good in her vocal performance. The villains, like the monsters, the Krags, which are like these big, giant, round, sort of, I don't know if they're kind of oval-looking shape, but they're sort of round. They've got like big black it's almost like they're wearing black armor, basically. They're these big round things, and I like the design, and the voices are really creepy, actually. I think they're pretty good. They're really good in animation and in live action, which is something to say. Uh, the animation for the story is really, really good, and it's easy enough to follow. It's very clear. They have tried very hard to replicate the sets that they had in live action, and the animation has been designed very well to fit the look of the rest of the story. With some of the missing stories in the Hartnell era and the Troughton era, I think the animation always suffered because they didn't really have much to go on, other than some pictures maybe. So the animation could be a little ropey in some of the older stories, but you know, that's not really their fault. It's just some of the unfortunate circumstances that the stories are all lost. But I'm really glad that they got to finish Shada, and also I forgot to mention, Nicholas Payne lent me this Blu-ray, so thank you very much, Nick, for lending me the Blu-ray. I appreciate it. Do I have any criticisms of Shada? Well, yes, it could be argued that I think the story is a bit slow at certain points. It does take a bit of time to get going. But when you get past the first act of the story, it does start to get very good, and I think it's really interesting. Also, speaking of which, the fact they filmed this in Cambridge, or at least what they filmed of the story, some of which they filmed in Cambridge, which is interesting because I'm not actually that far away from Cambridge. I live quite near it, and I've been there. It's a lovely place. It's a lovely little town, but obviously this is Cambridge in 1979, and there's a lot of great scenes in Cambridge, so the look of the story is great. It's really great. The music I really like as well. I think the music score is good. The music does sound kind of similar to City of Death, though. I mean, to me, it sounds very similar. Slightly different. It's a variation of the City of Death music. That's what it sounds like to me. Anyway. Also, maybe one other complaint I have about the story is the spheres. I don't think the spheres are that scary. I think they end up looking a bit silly, really. The way he's using the Skagra, he's using the spheres to mind control people and to use them, and I think that's a little bit silly. Like, it's just the way it looks like on the screen. Mainly in live action, it looks silly. It's not so bad in animation, but the idea of it is fine. But the look of it on screen looks a bit weird to me. It just looks a bit jarring, and I just don't know why characters would be scared of it. I just don't see why it would be scary, unless they know what's about to happen to them, which is fine. But yeah. The sets and production design are good from what we can see. I mean, it's kind of hard to judge the entire set. I mean, I suppose the ship set with Skagra's vessel is very good from what we can see of it, in animation and in live action. I have to kind of say both for this review. The direction by Pennant Roberts is very good, again, of what they could do. Of course, there's more animated parts than live action parts, but the live action parts are directed very well, and I really think the script is very good. Douglas Adams has written a very good script, and it is really interesting. And like I say, it adds to the Time Lord mythology. And once again, Tom Baker as the Doctor, he really is great in this story, vocally and physically. And also, it's nice that the very last scene, he physically. There's that schism, or whatever they call it, and we see the Doctor older, we see Tom Baker older, as in how he looks in 2017. So he's got grey hair and he's still wearing everything, but yeah, that was a nice touch at the end. It was nice that they chose to do that, which makes it kind of interesting then moving on to the next story. But yeah, Shada is a really good story. It's not actually edited as 6 parts, although it is actually the length of 6 parts. It's about 2 hours 18 minutes, but it's just edited as one long episode essentially. So it's like a film. It's like a 2 hour 18-minute film. Oh, I forgot to mention Lalla Ward. Lalla Ward, how can I forget? Lalla Ward is great as Romana. She's very good. She was probably a bit better in the previous story because she had a bit more to do, but I like her involvement in this story. And I look forward to seeing her in the next season as well. And thus brings me to the end of an era. But before we toast the end of the era, I will give Shada, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Yes, And of course, it is now time to do another mini ranking. Yep, it is the end of season 17, and, you know, to be honest, thank God. This season has been very uneven. Very uneven. Oh, God, it's not a season I would like to revisit anytime soon, anyway. So let's begin. So number 6, at the very bottom of this list is going to be The Creature from the Pit. Number 5 is The Nightmare of Eden. Number 4, The Horns of Nimon. Number 3, Destiny of the Daleks. Number 2, Shada. And number 1, City of Death. Right, so yeah, that's basically it. That's my review of Shada and my mini ranking. What do you think of Shada? Please comment down below, let me know. What do you think of season 17 as a whole? And what would you rate Shada out of 10? And how would you rank season 17? And what do I think of the overall season? Well, as I've said, it's very uneven. It's a very... I mean, half the season is shit. Basically, half the season is crap, but half the season is good. So it is very uneven, but I'm glad at least that Shada was managed to be finished in a complete form. I mean, can you imagine if the Horns of Nimon was the last story of the 70s? God, no. Which brings me on to my final part of my review, which is a toast. I have my little Heineken with me, which is one of the... It has Mr. Bond on it. It has James Bond, Daniel Craig on there. I think this was supposed to be a promotional release for No Time to Die. Sadly, the film has been delayed till November, so we'll, you know, I'm sure we'll get more of these later in the year. But this was in the shop. I bought a pack of 6 of these. I just literally bought it because they have the 007 logo on it. No other reason. So yeah, the end of the 70s. It's the end of an era. What many would consider to be the best decade of the show. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see why. Is it my personal favourite decade of the show? Well, I can't really answer that at the moment because I haven't seen every decade of the show. So ask me again when I finish my reviews. But yeah, I raise a toast to the 70s of Doctor Who, which began with Jon Pertwee and ends with Tom Baker. I think the 70s began, yeah, literally with the start of Jon Pertwee. So season 7 to season 17. So wow, literally 10 seasons. That's crazy. So cheers. Oh God, I love Heineken. Right, that concludes this review. And stay tuned next time when we go into the John Nathan Turner era. Oh, shit. With the Leisure Hive. Oh, stay tuned for that review. It could potentially be a rant. I've heard many bad things about that story, and expect my titles and music to change for the next review. So, thank you very much for watching this review of Shada, and thanks again to Nicholas Payne for lending me the Blu-ray. And, as always, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon. Bye.